Nigeria's 25 years of a broken democracy, the Independent National Electoral Commission and the National Assembly has been making several reforms on electoral laws. Some, of course, recently have pushed for more calls for the electoral reforms, which has continued to be top priorities and conversation ahead of 2027 general elections. Again, we are on the program this morning to explore those concerns. I'm being joined by a legal practitioner and the public commentator, Joseph Agbo is live here on the show to add voice to this conversation. Good morning and thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, a lot. INEC National Assembly have been pushing for electoral reforms. Many have continued to criticize. Look at the 2022 Electoral Act. It didn't meet the public expectations.
Well, sincerely, the 2022 Electoral Act, I would say, and all that the import in it, I would say that, and of course, what happened during the 2023 general elections, one cannot say confidently that the 2022 Electoral Act actually met the expectations of the people. But basically, it was thought that so many innovations were being brought in through that particular electoral act that would have eased, the process, give a lot of ease in terms of the electoral process in Nigeria, but that happened not to be. It was eventually discovered that there were a lot of lacuna in that particular electoral act, which again became like a stampede to Nigeria's expectations. So, to answer your question, I will not say, in fact, that particular electoral act did not meet the expectations of Nigeria. There's still much that should be done on the electoral act in Nigeria. There's so much that is needed to be done.
I mean, we look at electoral manipulations, impunity, and all of those concerns. Many were expecting that we'll have a legal framework from the 2022 Electoral Act to put to rest all of those issues. Let's talk about technology that was deployed, BVAS. BVAS was deployed to also ease aware of transparency and also breach the gap of manipulations in the process. Because prior to this time, what we had was people just using the ballot papers to manipulate figures at the end. But we look at the use of BVAS. We've still not gotten it right. Some are really having concern about that, because if you look at how much have been spent to deploy BVAS on our elections, we were expected that we would have been more better than where we were.
Exactly. You see, you're talking about much that was spent, and nothing less than 450 billion naira was expended, because it was thought that technology was going to be applied in that, in the Nigerian electoral processes for beginning from 2023. But that again did not happen. In fact, it was a humongous failure. It was a sham of a process, sincerely speaking, because BVAS, we thought, they are going to electoral results were going to be transmitted directly, electronically from the polling units, and that election manipulations which have become the norm in our electoral process over time. So in past successive elections, it was anticipated that the use of BVAS and IREV and all the other technological technologies that were being imported purportedly by that electoral act, it was thought that by Nigerians, by the vast majority of Nigerians, that that would have cured the problem of the rascality manipulations that we have during our elections. But unfortunately, like we said earlier on, there were lacunas in the electoral law. At the end of the day, in fact, it became like the BVAS and the technology that was employed, it was absolutely nothing, amounted to, added nothing to the electoral process. In fact, people were more disappointed, and you will discover more people, the younger folks, the older folks of Nigerians, they came out during the last general elections, because again, over time, the Nigerian populace had lost confidence in the electoral process, and there was this general apathy. People were no longer, the people had this mindset that their votes were not counting, so they didn't want to waste their times to go and do what will not count. But with the advent of that 2022 Electoral Act, the fears of people were like being allayed, and so many people came out to participate in that election. But unfortunately, the ruling class who had always manipulated the process, they still had their way at the end of the day, unfortunately.
Let's look at issues of electronically transmission of results, because I feel that was also another challenge we had, even after the use of beavers. What is the definition of transmitting result? Because those who argue that electronically transmitting result means whatever comes in, it's transmitted directly to the IREV and the portals, and to the IREV, where everybody can have access to monitor all of those things. It was a major concern, and except that is not a law, it's just a guideline. Because what we understand about the fact that, yes, we had 2022 Electoral Act, we also have guideline from INEC that they use in conducting elections. So do you feel that because it has not been constitutionalized, so we cannot really say, because it looks that transmission of result is still a problem? Yeah,
you see, if you look at the provisions of Section 65, Subsection 1 of the 2022 Electoral Act, and then which actually provide for this aspect of election, and then combining with Section 19 of the INEC guidelines, you discover that the law was not explicit. It did not say the modality, the medium, the procedure by which these results were to be transmitted. And at the end of the day, if you combine it with judicial decisions were made, you discover that what it amounted to is that the whatever comes into IREV or whatever is transmitted electronically, they were just like for purposes of, you were just watching cartoons. Let me just say that it had no impact on the election. It went no way to determine what was the outcome or what was the result of the elections. So, and like we said, these are areas that we as a people must look at sincerely, because we must look at how there must be a legal framework. There must be adjustment, amendment, alteration, if so to say, to this act, so that it can still come up and this aspect that can be regulated.
I mean, when you look at INEC versus with the power of declaration of result, some said, why rush to declare result when you've not sorted out some observations that have been made, some concerns that have been raised? But we always have a situation where elections, there will be declaration of results, there will be proceedings for inauguration, and then afterwards, we are now heading to court. Are you worried about that process?
It gives a lot of reasons for one to be worried, sincerely, because you see, we have to look at this from the background, from the root of it. One, what lies at the root of our election generally is bad faith. There's no sincerity or purpose. Otherwise, the whole most part, from the part of the political parties, INEC, and generally, because look at the elections that were conducted. You talked about INEC rushing. Ordinarily, the 2022 Electoral Act gave them some leverage, where they can look at, overlook even where there are issues. They could review sincerely where there's sincerity or purpose. They would have taken advantage of such provisions and try to see that the proper thing is done, at least in certain instances, especially instances where you have glaring, inconsistencies. There are certain contradictions that they could have resolved ordinarily, and it would have been so clear to everybody that this body is acting in good faith. It would have been so clear to everybody that there was sincerity of purpose, and there was something we're aiming at to achieve a very credible election at the end of the day. But they rather rushed to announce election results, even where the results or the processes were incorrect, even where they were incomplete. So you see, that gives a lot of reasons for one to worry. And now they do that under guise that the law did not provide the detailed procedures on how to review. But you see, at least there should have been some attempt. There should be some effort, and let it be manifestly seen that that effort is there, particularly on the part of INEC.
We've seen many suggestions recently with the recent calls for electoral reforms ahead of the 2027. What do you feel should be done to strengthen our democracy? Because when you look at the expectations of Nigerians, 2023 elections did not really meet up to the standard and expectation that a lot of persons have said, if we allow this to continue towards 2027, we may have low turnout, for the elections. the concern to strengthen our institution, to strengthen our electoral process. Do we need more laws? Because we may have a concern about, look at the laws we have. Has it been duly followed? Has it been fully implemented? Is there, borrowing your words, integrity for purpose, and all of those concerns? What do you feel should be done? Is it about electoral? Is it about more laws? Is it about reforming what we have for the 2022 Electoral Act? How do we get these things right, clearly?
You see, we must not get tired of making effort to see that the process works. Because again, a lot of times Nigerians seem to resign to fate. But where we are, we cannot resign to fate. We cannot put our hands on the plow and look back. You know, so I would really, my opinion, I belong to the school of thought that believe that we must again come around the table and see how we must dig deep into the electoral laws. We are not where we are at the inception of the Fourth Republic in 1999. Definitely some changes and so some positive additions have been made. But again, we must really look at it, thinking towards 2027. They are like the loopholes we have noticed in our electoral laws. We must look at them like the areas of making the people's votes to count, making their voices to count. Vox populi, vox dei. That is, say the voice of the people is the voice of God. You know the reason a lot of times there's no synergy between the Nigerian, the electorate, the populace, the citizens, and the ruling class and the people that are in leadership in Nigeria. The reason is just because a lot of times they feel the people who are in the positions of authority, who are occupying these offices, are not people that are elected by them. You can equate it to giving somebody a wife he never wanted to marry. Forcing, do you understand? It's just like forcing marriage. And a lot of times between the synergy and the chemistry between Nigerians and the ruling class is just like that of they are most of the times like strange bedfellows. So, but if we want to get over these contradictions, we must make deliberate efforts, such like looking into the laws, the electoral laws, and then beefing it up, working on it to see that what are the expectations of the Nigerian people are met, and that we must need to do that and do it timeously before we get into the present of times of the 2027 elections. Because again, there must be this effort to revive the interest of the people. There must be this deliberate effort made towards reviving the interest of the people, made towards carrying the people along deliberately. It must be made to sustain this democracy sincerely.
All right, those that are emphasizing the need to unbundle INEC, arguing that the Commission's current responsibilities are overwhelming and it hinders effectiveness. Look at the role INEC plays. Some said gets a body to supervise what INEC are doing. INEC are operating in isolation. Yes, the president has the power to make some appointment into the commission as well, even from the chairman and all of those things. But it looks like it's worrisome. It's not truly independent. Their responsibilities are overwhelming. They cannot carry out all of the roles alone. Because when you look at what political parties are doing, it looks like the political parties are distancing themselves from, INEC. It's only when election time reaches, that's when you don't have more reports. So, but in all the extent of the provisions of INEC, there are also to, create sensitizations, engage with whatever is happening within the political parties. Do you feel that they are overwhelmed with responsibilities?
Personally, I don't think that the problem is that of being overwhelmed with responsibilities. We saw what happened in the United States. It was a seamless election. I like always maintain in my arguments that and submissions that the problem we have is a system problem. We basically have a system problem, and then we are yet to our norms, our national core values. We are yet to define them. We are yet to look into them. If you saw, for example, what happened in the US up to the point of the swearing of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, you see that everybody's eye and all the things went towards the United States, the national, their nationhood and the ideologies that have always governed and kept the fabrics of that nation from the outset. So I don't think that INEC is overburdened, or whether we need to dissect them. I think that we have to look at the philosophy of election. We have to look at our ideologies as a people. Where there are contradictions that must be resolved. You understand? And those contradictions are why we don't have good results a lot of times. We have cultural contradictions, we have religious contradictions, we have so many kind of contradictions that should not even be issues at the level that the world has gone. So we have to look at those things, and then once the INEC, those things are resolved, now you begin to have institutions that work. You understand? We need to have, imagine having an INEC chairman, an INEC and an institution, or having a system that is deliberately minded to deliver to Nigeria because they believe in the Nigerian nation. Do you understand? They can go out of their way to do whatever that is proper to be done so that we can have the results we should have. But that is what it's lacking basically here. So I think that when in law there is what we call inside trading. When you have a president being the one that determines who is in INEC and what happened, again, it's a problem. It's a problem. So we should make effort to develop our system where we get to a place where there are institutions that work, and these institutions are autopiloted. They work on their own, irrespective of who is there. Do you understand? In other places, other climes were copying from, like the United States, there's extent to which the president can go, because the presidency itself is an institution. The electoral process and the structures that sustain it, they operate as a system. Those systems have been there. You can't alter them. You can't alter them for parochial interest. You cannot just go around them and alter them for parochial systems. We were talking the other day, we were talking about even separation of power. So we should look at systems and make sure that the proper systems are put in place. And I tell you that these things will work.
Do we link the issues of the internal democracy crisis within the political parties to be increasing these current political tensions we are having? Because some said INEC are not doing their work enough, to look at deepening internal democracy within political parties, because we cannot solve the problem of political parties. You cannot put a stop to the issues we are having on the election, even with the judiciary. People want to court after primaries of the political parties and all of those concerns.
The judiciary, for example, the judiciary cannot act outside of what the law is. If you look at the Electoral Act that we have presently, the timeline that is given for remedy, for me, I think it's too restrictive. Now you have an election where thousands of polling units, elections happen, for example, a presidential election, and then somebody goes to court, and then he has to get his evidence and pretend that before the law court. Now the court cannot make decisions where you are not presented evidence, credible evidence to prove your case. Every case is not the duty of the judge to prove your case, or you have to prove your case, and it has to be backed by verified evidence, by verifiable facts and figures. Now where the law makes it impossible for you to be able to present your evidence, then you know that going to court after elections a lot of times is just a waste of time. It's just an academic exercise.
We've seen courts declare people winners.
Yes, those are
expense of the people's expectations.
Such have happened in isolated cases. But where look at the presidential elections in Nigeria, there's not been a time that the courts have given any decision overturning any decisions, like the last one. And partly it's because you cannot even prove your case in court. The timeline to collate these results, they are very, very, restrictive. Now you cannot even compel INEC, who is the custodian of beavers. Now you are talking about, okay, how do you prove that the election irregularities and manipulations, even under the 2022 Electoral Act? Now where you have beavers, you have IREV and all that. Now you must be able to bring, apart from the form EC8A, and you must also present the beaver machines. You must bring the evidence, say that, okay, look at where manipulation are, and then a lot of times you cannot even get INEC to bring them before the law court within timeline, and then the courts are time bound as far as making their decisions, finishing with electoral petitions before swearing in. The time, so these are areas that we have to look at it. We have to look at and then do what is simple. It happened in Ghana recently. The election in Ghana, it was a seamless election. It was somebody the party in power, the incumbency did not even work, because they have already gotten a system that works. And you see, where the system works, nobody will be left in doubt as to who is winning the elections. You understand? But ours is clustered with a lot of shrouded in mysteries, and there's nothing. It's not rocket science. Conducting elections, you have this thing. Even when you talk about electronic transmission of election results, these are not very difficult things. We are, banks have operated the BVS systems and other things, and we have seen how it has worked effectively. This is the same modality. Do you understand? So I think it still goes back to where we are talking of sincerity of purpose. We have to be deliberate. The Nigerian people have to be educated. They have to know that, look, except we want to jeopardize or put our future and those of our generations in jeopardy, we must get these things right. We must get them right.
INEC and those supporting the side of INEC will argue that political parties are the reason for electoral flaws in this country. They have also blamed political parties to be the one sponsoring issues of vote buying, distortions, compromises of even the INEC officials, the different polling units and all of those things. So they've entirely said political parties are not getting it right. And that those have to ask them the same questions. Who are those regulators to get them to work things, to put things right? Would you also blame political parties for the current Yes, INEC has their own fair share of blame. The judiciary also have their own fair share of blame. Talk about political parties. Do they also have a big role in resolving this electoral?
They have a chunk of rules, and then of course where there's rules and responsibility, then of course you know that you can either vindicated or you are vilified. So but the political parties in Nigeria, they are in fact they are not doing what they ought to be doing. The political parties, do they have ideologies? No, here they talk about, and I must be very frank, and maybe sometimes on facts, we must also be brutal with facts. You understand? It's all about the baileys. What about individuals get? The system of politics in Nigeria is not based on ideologies. You understand? It's not based on ideologies. Now, that's why you see people cross-carpeting. Somebody is voted as APC, immediately he goes there, has not even delivered. There are no deliverables. They have not done anything, and it's the camping. That's why I have the camping all over left, right, and center. You understand? What the political parties are supposed to be doing, they are not engaged with what they are supposed to be doing. They are not engaged with what they are supposed to be doing. Each time you have what you see, most of the time you see conflict of leadership, intra-political conflict within the leadership of the party, which is not the basic things. The political party is supposed to be, the duty of educating the electorate, mobilizing the electorate towards achieving a credible election is that of the political party, basically. Now, when last have you seen that happen in Nigeria? When have you seen them organize, mass mobilizations for purposes of educating the Nigerian people? They don't have a lot of times, they don't have plans, they don't have manifestos. Because political parties are supposed to have manifestos. And the reason why you come for power is because you have looked at the system and you have something to offer. That what you have to offer is itemized, is contained in your manifesto, and you sell it out as it's just like the marketing. You go out to sell it out to the people. You get them to buy your to buy what you are offering, and then you go for power. And then, of course, once you get power, you come to implement. You can see what Donald Trump is doing. He's a Republican. Not everybody knows he's a Republican. And it's all about America. It's all about the American nation. Do you understand? It's all about governance in accordance with the set values, the core values, the foundational principles of the founding fathers of the United States. So, and of course, the party that everybody knows that the Republicans are conservative. They are most talk or stick to the most of times to those values. The Democrats are liberal. You understand? And they have been like that from time immemorial. But we come to Nigeria when we have, I don't know whether they are political parties, really speaking. A lot of times they don't do what, and they are not regulated. They are, of course, also the part where INEC is supposed to regulate and oversee and look into what the political parties are doing to ensure that they dispense what they get. They play their rules as they ought to play. But you see, all these things are not being done. So now, I always say, there must be deliberate effort. Everybody is responsible one way or the other. You and I, we are responsible. The media, which is the fifth
realm of the estate.
You understand? They must play their role appropriately. Of course, I must commend the fifth estate of the realm, however they are described, because so far so good. Where others have abdicated, for example, where the political parties are not doing what they ought to be doing, all Nigerians rely on what they get, the education they get from from the fourth estate of the realm.
So ahead of 2027, what kind of conversation should we begin to have? Getting the confidence of Nigerians back, because we've seen the deficit of trust already exhibited by many Nigerians. Because we must begin to get Nigerians involved. Governance and democracy has to do with the people. The people must be involved. Institutions. What is your final call in respect to as we move ahead of the 2027?
See, my call will be that everybody must now, as a matter of urgency, we must begin to work towards getting to restore the people's confidence and trust in the electoral process. That duty is the duty of, it behoves on us, as I'm a lawyer, for example, the Barr, the Nigerian Bar Association, the non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and must be able to do now. The legislators must now wake up to do what they ought to be doing. You understand? They must, like areas where there are lacunas, yes, they must make laws now to define certain things that we can give excuse and say it was the first time we're trying certain things in our electoral, during elections. But now we have ample time, ample opportunity to put the proper things in place. Every procedure must be regulated by law, otherwise there will be anarchy. You understand? So those are in charge of making laws must make the appropriate laws. You understand? Those that must, act as motivators, as catalysts, that must, sponsor the idea, whether in the National Assembly, the processes must be engaged in right now, so that while before it gets to the dawn of 2027, we should have put the structure in place, and then the Nigerian people must now have the assurance again that this thing can work.
On conflicting court orders, what would be your take? Because sometimes it's also undermining our process. I understand you're a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, sincerely, I think he has been a sincere, he has given a lot of words. Recently, a committee has been inaugurated, headed by the former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onogen, to look into this problem of having conflicting court orders. Because the orders of court, they are courts that are of coordinate jurisdictions, and the principle of stare decisis, where you have once there are judicial precedents, once decisions have been made by upper courts, higher courts, such decisions should bind ordinarily the lower courts. But if we have seen that being flaunted, we've seen that there's some kind of deviation from that procedure. So it's an area that is being looked into, and I believe in the capabilities of that committee. I believe in His Lordship Honorable Justice Walter Onogen retired. I believe in what they are able to come up with. I believe they are going to come up with provide a cure to that, because we cannot have, that will be devil democracy, where the courts are not doing what they should do. Justice, they are not dispensing justice judiciously and judicially. Then of course everything falls, everything will collapse. The system can collapse like a pack of cards. That can bring us to can lead us to a national crisis of horrendous proportion. That's even the more dangerous for the courts not doing what they ought to be doing. It's even more dangerous compared to what politicians do at the illegal criminalities and manipulations and all the things they do at the polling units, at the polling booths. If the courts cannot do what they ought to do, then of course everything will cave in definitely one day. But we pray we don't get to that extent.
There's a need to strengthen that institution as well.
There's a need to strengthen the court, and then the judiciary must wake up. We are looking forward to the new CM. This, we hope that she would, and of course the LDA and all that are part of the judicial system in Nigeria. Our jurisprudence must not be a sham jurisprudence. You understand? Our courts must not be what they are not. They must not be kangaroo courts. They must be courts of justice.
We should still know them as the last hope of a common man.
They must remain as the last hope of the common man.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Jason Agbo is a legal practitioner and the Public Affairs Committee. Thanks so much for joining us on the morning show and giving us insights on electoral reforms. Thank you so much. Everyone, that's when we wrap it up on the morning show today. A lot of concern about elections. INEC, which should become a leaner, more effective body, focusing solely on organizing free and fair, credible elections. A lot of reforms that have been proposed towards INEC, which is to embrace that they must have a system that works for all Nigerians, even as we begin to count our days ahead of the 2027 election. A lot of expectations. Everyone should do their role. The judiciary should do their role. The lawmakers should also do their role. And of course, the executive should play their role to enhance, and the Nigerian people as well to participate effectively, to continue to have confidence in our institutions that can only build this nation for us all. This is when we wrap it up today on the Global Morning. We'll continue the program again with Talk Sports, as Ramsey will be here to take us on Top Sports, and of course Samuel Odi will also be here to bring some updates on the world of business and our future bulletins for today. A lot of programming is lined up to continue to bring you this to news and items and programming of the day. My name is Edikan Michael. I was here with but thanks so much for joining us today. See you again.